Good evening, everyone. We're going to go ahead and call to order the Safety and Security meeting for Monday, October 23rd, 2023. And there are also two other board members who are on this committee, Dr. Monica Scott and Mrs. LaShonda McFadden, who are not here at this moment. I do think Ms. McFadden will make it here. I think she's at work. So we will go ahead and get started with a call to order. And I'm good. Okay. All right. So one of the things we're going to start talking about, as you guys can see here, I'll just go over the agenda so everybody at home knows the direction that we're going to take. We're going to talk a little bit. I'm going to do a quick recap about some of the things that we did last year in the very short window that we had, that we were able to accomplish with administration. Then go over our committee goals for 2023, 2024, which you guys will give input on as well. And then our safety protocols for special needs students. I'm so happy to have Ms. Deneen Rivers here with us as a special needs mom and part of our Richland 2 community. And I will say a really well-run SIC. And that she's going to be here to speak as well in regards to that and give us some information. We're supposed to have a DARE update from Dr. Scott. She's not here. If she doesn't make it, we will do that at the next meeting. And then we're also going to talk about some upcoming meeting and calendar of events, things that we have to collectively, we talk about what we want to do to involve the community and give them some input as well on safety and security and what we're doing here. Okay, all right, and then at the end we'll do any chair and committee comments that you guys may have that you want to have there. So, all right, we'll go ahead and get started. One of the things I want to say, like just thinking of like a mission statement, we didn't really have one before, but I just thought this was really great, something that I really worked hard on and then got some input from some people. But as the Richland 2 Safety and Security Committee, we dedicate ourselves to pursuing the unwavering safety and well-being of every student, staff member, and visitor by proactively enhancing comprehensive safety measures, fostering collaboration with community and expert stakeholders. We commit to creating and sustaining an inclusive, secure, and nurturing educational environment for all. And so when we're talking about safety and security, I want you guys all to be, of course, thinking about that in terms of what we're doing. So first up, I just want to say thank you all for being here. I'm super excited. I would like to go around and everybody give their name and then just kind of like how you got to be here. So like whether that, like what position you hold, either at your school or as a parent in the community, just let us know who you are. So we'll start with you, Mr. Epps.
Good evening. My name is Will Epps. I have the honor of being the 2023-2024 District Teacher of the Year.
I'm Michaela Spencer, and I am Ridgeview Student Body President.
Hello, I'm Tatiana James. I serve as Ridgeview Student Body President, and I also got here by being a part of the Student Leadership Committee here at R2i2.
Good evening. I'm Deneen Rivers, and I'm the chair of the School Improvement Council for Blythewood Middle School. I also have two children in the district, one in middle school, one in high school, and over 15 years of being with Richland School District 2. And I'm quite proud of that.
Hi, I'm McGee Moody. I have had two daughters already make it all the way through the Richland 2 School District, and one currently still over at Blythewood High School now, who is a senior and was approached by Ms. Nash not too long ago to serve on this committee, to which I gladly accepted.
Mr. Sims.
Good evening. My name is Mark Sims. I'm the proud principal of Richland Northeast High School and also the high school principal rep.
My name is Mark Claxton. I'm the Director of Safety and Emergency Services for the district.
My name is Tom Rupke. I'm a lieutenant with Richland County Sheriff's Department. I'm the lieutenant for the School Resource Officer Division.
Hi, I'm Chris Woodard. I am Spring Valley High School Student Body Treasurer.
Awesome, and I'm Angela Nash, and I'm the board vice chair. All right, so one of the things I want to talk about is just like our calendar so that we can make sure that we're doing dates that work with you all. So one of the things that I was thinking about as far as dates, and I think we had talked about it a little bit before. Hey, Ms. McFadden. No, I told them that you were at work. You're good. Well, do you want to do a quick introduction to yourself? Because we're just doing it. We just finished up introductions.
Okay, you want to finish with everyone else?
Oh, they did.
Okay,
Yes.
School McFadden, Richland School District, Board of Trustees, and Safety Committee.
Yes. talking about the calendar or what dates would be good for you all, and then how often you would like to meet. One of the things that we kind of talked about, I believe, myself, Dr. Moore, and Dr. Scott, was about the frequency of how many times we wanted to meet. And you guys tell me, I can't, Dr. Moore, did we say like 4 times? Is that correct? Are you all good with 4 meetings? Which at those 4 meetings, we would address what specifically those goals are once we get through our goals, break down those 4 meetings.
Is that
Any input?
Is that per month?
Yes. Oh, no, that will be that will be for the whole entire time, for the school season.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
For 2023, 2024.
Ms. Nash, if we have subcommittees, how will that work?
Do you guys want to talk about doing subcommittees?
That might be necessary.
Okay, sounds good. Okay. Well, then let's talk about that first then. If we do subcommittees, what are some of the subcommittees that you all would be interested in?
Well, for my presentation, I wanted to share or at least do a deep dive into some recommendations.
Perfect.
And I have 6 for our special education program.
Perfect.
So if we reduce our meetings down to 4 times, and we're already close to November, I don't believe that we'll be able to tackle all 6 of the recommendations.
Okay.
Or even if we reduce the 6 down, I don't know that that will give us, this committee, enough time to report back to our public.
Okay. So are you all okay if we did do 1 a month for the school year? Okay, everyone's okay with that? Okay, so. All okay with, we can do either the first Monday, we could do the alternate Tuesday from school board meetings. What input do you all have in regards to that? As far as the day goes, is there a day that works consistently for you all so that we don't have to like kind of figure out, send out an email and say who's available?
I know for me personally, just with family things, Mondays and Tuesdays are the hardest.
Okay.
But I can make myself available.
Okay.
Personally, I would like to say maybe a Tuesday or Thursday would be easiest.
Okay. Well, so let's just see there Thursday. What do people feel about Thursdays?
I'm pretty good with Thursdays.
Okay. Thursday? Okay. So let's say Thursday, and then that's just a choice of first, second, third, or fourth Thursday of the month. Does anybody have any thoughts on that? If Thursday's open, so do you guys want to do? Shonda, what do you think?
Well, okay, so we have our board meetings on that second one, so maybe if we had it before, that Thursday before.
Okay, perfect. So that's the first Thursday? Okay, so we're going to say first Thursday of every month. And that's for the 2023-2024 school year. Okay. All right, so that part's done. So now let's talk a little bit. I just want to say, last year we started in, I believe it was like the end of March, and we were able to go all the way from March to June, and we were able to accomplish a lot of things with administration. They have done a great job with the recommendations that we have provided, and even some of the ones that they brought to the table as well. And some of those we were able to put together in a very short time, thank you to administration, you guys know, our Safety and Stay Safe for the Summer, which I thought went really well as far as the turnout that we had and things of that nature. I think that went really well. Also, one of the biggest things is metal detectors. That was huge, and we're going to get into that too as a part of our 2023-2024 goals as we talk around for middle school. So those are just some of the things. Also the PSAs, we asked for some PSAs, and man, I can say that they rolled out some PSAs to make sure that we keep our parents and our community informed on a lot of the things that are happening, and our students had asked also for certain PSAs around certain content, and they have done a great job with that. So thank you to the administration and everybody on board here in this committee. So now let's go ahead and talk about, Dr. Scott isn't here, so we'll go ahead and go into safety protocols for special needs students. When we were first talking about going into this new year, one of the things Ms. Rivers brought up, and I thought it was incredible because sometimes you miss these things, and that's why it's great to have community involvement and have all of you have some input. And it was for our special needs students and having conversations around how we can make our schools safe, even more safe for our special needs students. And so I'm going to let Ms. Rivers go ahead and begin to speak on that.
Well, first I'd like to share that I have an amazing student here in the district. I have a son. He is now at 9th grade over at Blythewood High School, and we started out in the pre-K 4 program here. I will tell you during that time of elementary age, he transitioned through 3 different schools. We have had highs and we have had lows. We have not always been at our zoned home school for various reasons. I do want to share that our parents and community members all gathered and got together during this season, during that time, and navigated along with our district leaders to have most of those students return to their zone schools. During that time, I was able to forge really good relationships with administration, teachers, but particularly the parents in our community. We have a wonderful, what I call, underground network of parent support. Most of our parents are indeed working. It is a huge myth to believe that a lot of our special education students here have parents who are just stay at home or they're home and they just have a whole lot of time to navigate maneuvering back and forth at school. That is not always the case. We also have a number of parents who have needs in terms of resources and need assistance with navigating resources for special education programs within our district and outside our district. I was one of those parents. IEPs and 504 plans can be a bit daunting. They've changed through the years, but I started out along with about 20 other people around the table. It is still something that moves me to this day. It is also an area of interest of our parents, and we'd like some additional support. I've matriculated with my child through middle school and now through high school. And one of the things that I've noticed is that our district does a wonderful job with generalizing information to our mass public, but we don't always individualize safety for our special needs community. And so I am, along with the parents and our constituents in this community, would like for us to take a deep dive into these 6 particular categories. I'd like to share them with you now. The first being safety training for staff, and that's all staff. That is to include administration, teachers, and ancillary and support. What training should look like in terms of emergency and harm reduction, training for CPR, and do we have enough nurses or a nurse physically located at each of the schools? Do we have medical support for those nurses if they're not at said schools? These are some questions we'd like to do a deep dive. The other is transportation. Emergency bus evacuations do happen, and I think if we feel like it didn't happen on the emergency special education buses, that is a huge miss. So I'd like for us to take a look at protocol and policy for what evacuation would look like on those special needs buses. Those buses are also to be equipped with emergency equipment. Is it sufficient? Have we done our logistical check to make sure that those said devices, medical devices, work on those buses? Are they operable? Are they accessible? And do our special needs buses have adequate drivers to include additional staff? Each one of those buses should have a minimum of 2 people. That is the driver and a support person on the bus. I'd like for us to take a look at that if that is not the case, or examine the policy and procedure around safety for our special needs buses. What is the average time for drop-off and pickup for our students who are zoned for their home schools and who are not zoned in their home schools? In the past, we have had parents to come and share that their students have been on the bus for over 30 minutes, sometimes up to an hour, to get to schools that may not have been in their zoned home area. The other area of interest is the special education emergency plan for the district level and at the individual school level. I'm sure we have them, But I don't know that we've done a great job in making sure that those emergency plans have gotten out to the parents in the community of the students that we're serving. So to take a look at that, maybe revisit it or possibly even reinvent those emergency plans to include conversations with those parents. I'm proud to say at my school, at one of my schools, at Blythewood Middle School, we instituted last year through our school improvement plan, our school improvement council, a plan, an emergency plan to have grab-and-go bags for emergency situations and evacuations of our SPED classes. Our request was that our district take a look at that and possibly institute grab-and-go bags at each of our schools. We'd like to know, has that been done? And what are in those grab-and-go bags? Are they accessible? And have we had communication and contact with those teachers and administrators? Are the classes equipped with the necessary medical items to include sensory items like headphones for emergency drills? Are we including our special education classes in those drills? That is to include contained students and those who are maneuvering through the general population. The fourth thing is infrastructure and logistics. Now, this is of grave importance, and I will tell you for me, because I have a son that is now at Blythewood High School, and I applaud the school. However, I don't recall anyone meeting with the parents of the special needs community to go over the blueprint or logistics of the school. Now, if you know the, dare I say, body count, but the student count and population is quite large there. There's only one elevator. Did you know that? So we have this huge wing at this beautiful high school and a number of students and faculty and staff that possibly may need to use the elevator, but no one thought to come to the community or talk to us about logistically making sure that there were ample mobility places for all of those students and staff members. What about chair lifts, if necessary, in stairwells or staircases? The other is teacher and class coverage. Now, I know some of you are probably blinking and saying, well, what does that have to do with safety? Well, let me tell you as a parent, it has a lot to do with safety. First of all, I want to know if we have adequate temporary assistance if those teachers need to step away for IEP and 504 plans, which are legally mandated to happen. If they are away from the class for these said meetings, who is in the class with those students? Are they trained? I would say so, but I believe our committee would need to take a look at ensuring that there is adequate coverage of more than one assistant if the teacher is not in the classroom. The other thing is unencumbered planning time. Now, I can tell you as a parent, when I get ready to look at my child's IEP plan, it takes time to go over those goals and recommendations, and I cannot imagine a teacher of 20-plus children in the classroom that has to navigate through an IEP and 504 plan. Are we giving them the said time to do that outside of their regular planning time? I believe that is something we need to take a look at in terms of time allocated to the staff that are meeting the needs of our special needs students. And dare I say the last thing, because honestly, I could keep the list going for you, but I won't do that. The other thing is, I'd like for us to review our Attorney General's report and findings on our special needs recommendations for safety, and make that public, and in plain sight, plain view, that portion at least. And let us take a deep dive at that. Maybe help to check the boxes and of some corrective actions, some improvements, or like I like to say, enhancements, and bring that back to the overall body. So these are 6 things and 6 big things, but they can be broken down into small things. I think they aren't heavy for this committee. So My recommendation would be possibly form a subcommittee. If we don't already have a committee of special education teachers, I think that should be reviewed. At least have a few additional parents if there is a subcommittee, some special education teachers and staff, and someone from our special education department to help serve along with a board member on those subcommittees. I've taken over, I believe, 3 minutes of your time, so
You did.
I'll step away.
You
Any
did really
questions
well.
for me?
Any questions or comments from either staff or Dr. Moore, Marshall Lynn, Dr. Franklin, if you guys have any comments or input that you wanted to provide as well?
I think some of that can be shared publicly,
Okay.
but there are certain aspects of it that we cannot share. We
Right.
cannot share details of safety plans, because that is a violation of protocol for safety reasons. But we could definitely, if we get that in writing, we can begin to look at the request.
Okay.
I think a large portion of that has already been addressed.
Okay, that's what I
but,
was thinking. Okay.
If we haven't done a good job sharing that with the parents, what we can share, then we can definitely work on that.
So I'm okay with the subcommittee if you think that's, is everybody in favor of subcommittee for that? Okay, so then that's what we will do.
Ms. Rivers, I would like to say, I appreciate that information because I'm not familiar with a lot that's going on. I'm becoming familiar with the SPED department. But breaking those things down that we need to pay attention to is very helpful, and I thank you for what you've done and the research that you put into to let us know what we need to do, so I appreciate that. It was lengthy, and I do understand that because when I looked at it first, I thought, wow, this is a lot, but you're right, we can tackle this, and I appreciate you bringing this to us for us to get started on this. Thank you.
Okay, so I guess what we will need to do is, if we're going to do a subcommittee, if, Ms. Rivers, is it possible that you could email to myself, and then I will share this with administration, the people that you would like to have represented on that committee?
Absolutely.
Okay, and then if there's anyone here who would like to serve on that committee as well, or you can bring that back to us, and then we can all talk about it here and make decisions around those things that you guys bring before us and those recommendations. Does that sound good to everybody? Okay. Okay, so next up, I decided to go and do committee goals down here at the bottom because that way it goes with upcoming meeting and calendar of events. So let's talk a little bit about our other goals. We definitely have special education safety protocols. That's a big thing, so we're going to leave that as one of our goals. And then we have the subcommittee for that. But the other thing, I'll say one of the things was we talked about myself and administration and Dr. Scott, and I believe I shared this with Ms. McFadden as well, is we were talking about ways, we had the community event last year, but we wanted to have something where parents could be a part of. We talked about something called Parent U, and I believe that it has been done in the past, where we have different people from our community come and speak. We had cybersecurity last year. That was a huge topic and one we couldn't do all in 30 minutes. Honestly, quite frankly, I don't think we could do it in an hour or even 2 hours, but it's so necessary. And we're actually going to put that as part of our goals as well. But we would love to do a Parent U, and I want you to know if you guys also feel that that's something that you guys would be interested in. And basically, we would have it here at the district, and parents would be able to basically, like a fair, visit and talk and learn about the different aspects of safety from some of the people in our community, our cybersecurity specialist that is from the Attorney General's office. There were a number of things surrounding safety that we had before. Trafficking, that was a huge conversation and still remains a huge conversation here in our state and in our area. So we can have people be a part of that, come and speak as well. And what do you guys think of that as far as something that we should do? Any thoughts on that or things that you think, you think we should include in that? Okay. Now, the other thing around Parent U is time of year. Dr. Moore, if you don't mind speaking to that, do you remember what as far as what was, I think we were talking about it, but I don't think we finalized like what we thought was a great time.
We didn't finalize the time.
Right.
We talked about maybe doing something in the spring time so that the committee would have adequate time to plan for it and to look for partners that would also be available to support the event.
And that would be good for administration too. Does that give administration time to help us as well? Okay,
Yes.
perfect. So are you all okay with spring? Okay. Okay. So last year, or the last school year season, what we did was we basically talked about several areas. We talked about the area of mental health. We talked about the area of our actual building safety. We talked about the area of bullying, which is also part of just safety in general, and making sure that our students felt safe, and breaking down those areas. And then, we had great input from a lot of the people here. Mr. Claxton was here last time as well. I believe Mr. Rhodes was here as well. Sheriff Rhodes was here, or Captain Rhodes was here as well to provide input. And so what we talked about this, and we believe those are things that are going to be ongoing and will always be a part of things that we have to tackle. Would you guys agree with that those are things that we all have to tackle? And so what I would like to talk about, one, I would love to hear from Mr. Epps and our student representatives on things around mental health that you think that possibly we could do to make our students feel safer.
If it's I would yield to the students first.
Okay.
Because I want to hear from them.
Okay, perfect.
Hold on. Okay, so mental health is like a really big like part of students, unfortunately, because like I know a lot of kids at my school who kind of like they had like I love to go to therapy. But I feel like we just need like I don't know if our school has it, but like a safe space probably, because a lot of kids at our school get a bit overwhelmed with our studies and stuff, especially like the kids are in a lot of AP classes, or they have like a lot of things going on at home. So I feel like a safe space, if possible, in like each school might make it easier for them. So that, like if they need like a break. Sorry, I have a stammer. Sorry. If they feel as if they're being overwhelmed, or like they just need like a break from like their like work in general, they can like have permission to go to their to like the designated safe space in the school to just de-stress, figure their stuff out, and then when they're ready to come back to class, something like that. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I definitely think a safe space would be a really good idea, because I know here at Spring Valley, it's a really big thing about mental health, and no one even really wants to talk about it much, but it's always like a lingering impression that's like always there. So I think a safe space would be a nice way to like cut like the tension there, at least.
I want to add and say that a safe space doesn't necessarily have to be an actual space. Usually it can actually be a person. That's what it is to most of us. So I don't know if it's a guidance counselor or it could be a principal even. But I feel like safe space, mental health, personally, I take college level classes. I'm part of the Abbott Early College program. That is extremely tough because you are dealing with college professors who don't have a lot of care in the world. And you're used to everybody being loving and caring around you. So mental health is a big deal within high school. So what I want to say is sometimes a mentorship. So sometimes having that person, those mentorship programs, I recognize within the Richland 2 school district, which I've been a part my entire life, ever since pre-K. That's always been an amazing thing for us. So I just want to imply that. And that safe space isn't necessarily a space. Yes, Ridgeview does have certain things such as sometimes yoga rooms or blue light, and we'll just sit there. We'll lay out yoga mats and listen to calming music. Sometimes that's great, but a person, I just want to say it can also be a person.
I'm also pretty sure that Blythewood has a safe space, and I'm also like that y'all touched on finding a trusted adult. And being able to go into a room. I know, if a student asks me, hey, can I just go sit in a quiet space? That's always something that we need to do. High school is stressful. School is stressful. Life is stressful. And having any chance that you can go and find that space that's comfortable for you and help you, deal with that, or maybe get some guidance. And maybe from someone who's walked in your shoes and been there and done that is really helpful. So I know, from my perspective, it's really good for me to hear.
Do you all have any comments or thoughts? Mr. Sanders?
As we look at student experiences, especially at the high school level, there are two things that students need. Number one, they need to feel a sense of belonging. Secondly, their voices need to be activated within a learning environment. So I know, for example, at Richland Northeast High School, we offer different opportunities for students' voices to be heard, and secondly, for them to belong to different clubs and organizations. Once students feel that sense of belonging, then they feel more comfortable communicating to adults in the building to assist with mental health. So as we look at different committees for the safety committee, I think finding out how we can help students feel a sense of belonging, and secondly, how can we help students have their voices activated within their learning communities.
Do students have any thoughts on things that you think would work for that, where you could feel like your voice was activated and that you would have, like, is it a forum? Is it, is it something like similar to a forum? What would you feel that would make you all feel comfortable in speaking and having your voices activated in your learning community?
Sorry, I know I'm jumping in a lot. Okay, but as a student that went from an introvert to an extrovert, really I want to say that, how do I say this? We always have student activities or student council, which is supposed to be the voice of the school and to speak for other people. But I want to say really having a panel. Now, recently, Richland High School did an anti-bullying panel for Anti-Bullying Week this last week. And what we did is pretty much we had our thoughts on teachers and staff members versus students and how they feel on that. Now, with that, I brought up certain cases of friends. So with being a person that's highly known around the school, you know different kinds of people. I know people who get suspended pretty much every month and probably expelled, and I know kids who probably are like valedictorian. So with that, I just want to say, hold on, go back. You know what? I get sidetracked very easily. Could you go back, please?
It's just, what do you think? Do you think like a panel? I heard you say about the panel. Is that something that you're looking for, like a student forum? Would that help activate the student voices in the learning community? And I like what you said about the anti-bullying, the panel that you guys had. I think that that's wonderful. When I was in school, I did this really crazy thing. I started this club called, it had a horrible name, so don't judge me, but it was called Foundation of Teenagers Against Violence, what we like to call FTAV. It was a really horrible name. I've gotten much better with naming things. But one of the things that we would do is we actually would go and visit other schools, and it gave us some insight into how different schools work. But one of the things that we did as our final project was we all sat around and talked about violence, because sometimes and anti-bullying, because sometimes it crossed over from school to school. And we had like a panel, and I thought it went really, really well. That was like in the early 1900s. But we did have a panel that was like that, and I thought it went really well. And so I'm sure today, if you felt that panel went really well, I feel like that's definitely something that we can do, and maybe it's something that we could do here at R2i2, that if we invited more people. Is that kind of what you're thinking, or is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, so I want to say that a panel of reaching kind of like a line from one student to another, even though that student may not be comfortable speaking, another person will be. So that panel, I just want to conclude, is an amazing thing. So it doesn't require everybody in the school, and us students, I mean, I'm pretty good at it, but let's just say we know we have about 1,700 students at Ridgeview High School. Let's just say more than half the school does not check their emails. So with that being said, a survey or something like that, oh yeah, It's gonna go over everybody's heads, and they probably won't even get it. Oh, this survey? But our panels, they're always broadcasted on our news shows and stuff like that. That can always be something that can be relooked at and watched and put on YouTube, kind of like your meetings here. So versus something that's just simple and you can't ever get back, a panel would be great, because you can always look back and revise that and stuff like that.
And Mr. Sims, you're in school, so what are your thoughts on a panel? Is it more feasible to do something that's like cross-district, or something better to do in schools, each of our schools, our high schools?
I would think it would be best to have all the high schools represented. The key is, again, transparency and communication. And one way to get that is to have the voices activated from various high schools across the district.
Okay, so what I would say as a goal then, are we thinking that we will do a panel for anti-bullying, mental health, surrounding that conversation with a panel of, would it be principals also being a part of that conversation? Okay, so principals being a part of that conversation as well. And we could say, what would be a better time, do you think, to do something like that if we were to do that? For you guys, based on your schedule? A time frame, like if like say for next year, January, are we thinking like we'll shoot for the next school year, or if we do shoot for this school year?
For something as such, I would like to start at the beginning of the school year. But there's always a time, as for example, at the midpoint or midway of the school year, is another pretty good time to start.
You prefer?
The beginning of the
Okay, okay, all right. So then I would say, so that we can make sure that we do it right, and I think it will give us time to get like all the kinks out, all of that, the beginning of the 2025. Okay, so I say we put that down as our goal. Panel with all of our, okay. Now, another hot topic is where we talk about our building safety. And I know that we had talked about middle school last year. We touched on it a little bit about the metal detectors for middle school. Ms. McFadden, I know you have some thoughts on that. Can you share with some of the things that we've discussed as far as your thoughts around metal detectors for middle school?
I believe that I got it. I think it's good. The metal detectors for the high school are really good. The students are getting used to it. I haven't actually been out to see them in the past month or so. It's been a while since, I think, the beginning. So I think they're going well, and the students are catching on a lot better. However, we still need that training, because when the 8th graders are coming into high school next year, they're going to need to know how to do that. And I know that we're starting up with those new safety screenings this month. So my concern is that we currently have very nice high schools, very nice buildings, but when we walk in there, we have a bunch of tables that are just set up there, and they are pushing them through. We have our metal detectors at each end, and we have someone there. However, we've spent a lot of money on our schools, and it's not aesthetically pleasing, and the lines aren't moving as swiftly as we want them to move in order to get our children through. It's getting better, because it is still the beginning, but we really have spent a lot of money on our schools, and we want to make sure that it remains that way. So coming in and setting up large white tables, I think it's like 10 to 15 every morning, isn't really, or however they do it, it isn't really conducive for a long-term solution. We do definitely want to keep the metal detectors, but I know that we can look at a better way of having the students come into the building. The tables just aren't really functional at the beginning and the end of the two sides they have to come in, especially at Spring Valley. When they're coming in, it's roped off. It's not really what we have considered or thought that we want our schools to look like. And so what our thoughts are is to take those and start, since we've already spent the money on it, and start moving those into our middle schools to get them prepared. We have plenty of those to do that, to start that process. And then for our high schools, make a more fluid type of situation, so that when you come into our schools, that they are just as nice and as fluid as they were before. Right now, it's still not that way. And of course, it takes some time to get these kinks out because it is a new process. But the way that it is now in our school, it's not a long-term permanent solution. Those tables can be taken down easily and put back up, so it's convenient now. But if we're talking about this being a permanent solution for the next 5-10 years, the tables aren't going to work. So we're thinking about how we wanted to move forward with that. So we have been allocated, and we've spoke with Dr. Scott, and we've allocated some funds for us to go look at some other schools with metal detectors to see what theirs look like, because you need a model, and we don't want to go to a school that's just got a brand new one. We want to go look at a school that has been functioning with these metal detectors for years, and it is efficient. And so that's what we're going to do. It is still in the works, but we're heading that direction so that we can get an idea and see what it looks like. So it will be, unfortunately, during a weekday, so that we can actually observe how it's happening. When a district of our size with the same amount of students in our schools, so that we can see what the bus unloading process looks like. You have 4 and 5 buses coming at one time, 50 to 60 students getting off. We want to see what that looks like and how we can make it more efficient and better for our district. We are still heading on the premier path, and that's where we want to remain. So what we're doing, we're going to try to get that started with Dr. Scott. She's got some schools that she wants to see, and we're going to work out in our travel budget that we were able to get approved to see if we can't take some of you guys with us so that we can see what we need to be doing with our schools and the metal detectors.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that we'll put that down. We're going to put that down as one of our goals, is to be able to go and visit other schools. I believe that that was part of our list too. I had that down last time. No, that we did talk about it before, but we're trying, now we've allocated the funds for us to do it. So everything takes money, or at least for the board. So I know that we increased our board budget, and so we're going to use some of that to go and visit other some schools that are similar in size and have some other different things. Anybody have any questions or thoughts on that, or administration have any input on that? Okay, we're moving right along. Okay, let's see here. And then we talked a little bit about DARE. Dr. Scott can talk a little bit more about that. We have, one of the things, she went to one of the conferences and learned a lot about DARE and how we utilize DARE and how we can utilize DARE even more. So I'm excited for us to hear that update, because we really want to start using the tools that we have, especially with everything that's coming up with like vaping and things of that nature that really cause damage to our students, and our environment as a whole, and it's just not safe either. So all of that, we'll be glad to get an update from her, and happy to hear from her at our next meeting that we have next first Thursday. So let's see here. Is there anything else? One of the other, I'll just kind of give you guys some ideas of things that I thought about, and you tell me if any of these spark any interest to you all, or if you all have any other goals that you would like to put. I don't want to overwhelm us with goals, because I want to make sure that we are able to accomplish that in a 2024, 2023, 2024 school year, or at least be working to having some goals to implement as well for 2025, because I know we talked about the panel, things of that nature, but have those things outlined.
Chair Nash, I just want to make clear, are we talking about meeting next Thursday on the 2nd? Because that would be the first Thursday. Yeah. You want to meet on the 2nd? Okay.
Yeah, so to keep it consistent.
Okay, unfortunately, I'm not going to be here. It's my husband's birthday, so we're going to be out of the country, so I will not be here.
King? Oh, Dr. Scott? I'm sorry, Dr. Moore?
You want to change it to the second Thursday?
Oh, sorry, no, we're doing first Thursday, right? Because she's saying that the next Thursday, well, I guess we would have, it would be next week. So do you all want to skip that meeting and then do the next one? It's up to y'all, because that would be, we're in an odd place right now because of where we started today.
So then the next meeting would be December.
I think we can do the 9th of November. That would be the second one, just to get it started.
That is the Order of the Flame
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
event.
Okay.
And then we'll move into Thanksgiving.
Right.
And so,
Well, there's the 16th.
Would you guys be okay if we do December for that first one? Because I do think that it will be a lot. One of the things I don't want to do is I don't want to overwhelm people. You guys are like coming from other jobs and things of that nature. I do think if we did that, then we'd have time to go ahead and take a look at your list of what we're talking about as far as the subcommittee, get the questions answered that we already need to be answered, and then that way we can start a fresh start on Thursday in December. Does that sound good for you guys?
So
That
would
works.
that be December 7th then?
That would be December 7th, yes.
Okay, that's fine.
That works for everybody? Okay, December 7th. Okay. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of go over what we already have. One, we're going to do a subcommittee for our special education students in regards to safety. We have a student panel district-wide for planning for the beginning of the 2024-25 school year. And then we also have Parent U for the spring, which I imagine spring means April, March or April. Which is better for you all? April-ish? Dr. Franklin? April. Everybody, April.
Because in May, we begin graduations.
Right.
And it becomes a very, very busy month.
Yes, I do. I remember last year was tight. So April, so are we thinking before spring break or what? I want to make sure that I'm working with administration, so.
Spring break is the first week of April, so it would have to be in March. The last week of March would probably be the best. I'm looking at the calendar.
Okay. So last week of March? Okay. For the Parent U, yeah. Okay, so last week of March for Parent U, does that sound great? Okay.
And at the next board meeting, will you come up with the topics that you're going to, so adequate time for planning?
I sure will.
Thank you.
I do want to input that we may not have a RITU representative that week because we are hosting our spring fling event that last week of March. So
Sounds good. We will definitely get you all filled in so that you can make sure that you have your input as well. Anybody have any questions or thoughts or concerns so far?
I wanted to circle back, not to rewind the meeting or step back, but just to go back to the mental health conversation earlier. My thinking, and I'm listening to the students, and we're talking about safe spaces and things like that, and I understand the need for that. I get it. Along those lines, what are we doing to help them when they are walking into that time where they're overwhelmed? What are we doing right there to give them the skills to navigate whatever it is that's overwhelming them? How do we teach them how to prioritize these things and because in my mind, for myself, I can't think of anything worse than somebody saying, okay, just go sit right there by yourself and figure it out. That would be the worst for me. So I think we need to look at that also. What are we doing to help them learn how to take these overwhelming feelings, stack them up, put them in order, and work their way through them, instead of just saying, go over here, sit down, take a couple deep breaths, and get on with your life. Like I think we need to provide these avenues for them. And I think ultimately what I'm hearing is I think everybody that's spoken tonight, being able to put all this together. You got mentors, you've got a space they can go where they can kind of shut down for a second. And we've got a place where, whether it be with a mentor or through a panel, where their voices can be heard. I think if there's a way we coordinate all that, but infuse it with, hey, look, when you start feeling this way, just line things up. What's the most important thing right now? What do I need? And start helping them learn to navigate their way through this instead of just saying, good luck. I hope this works out okay for you. And so just my thought, like, I don't know. And I know that maybe there are, I'm not aware of any like coordinated efforts that we're doing either through schools or the community, anything like that. So maybe something to think about.
And I think that we probably need to teach them that before they get to that point. So if we could find a way to teach and reach all the students before they get there, so preventative before you need a cure. So if we could find a way I know our interventionalists do a lot, but I think that they are for specific students at specific times. But if we could find a way to actually go into and make sure that all children at an auditorium type situation have a group come in and do a full presentation and some practices and actually allow them give them the tools. They may not need it right then and there, but they may need it later. I remember when I was younger, we had auditorium time. And during that time, we had study halls. I mean, a lot of our schools have study halls. They are not, they're literally just in there. We could utilize that time that the students are in there and check that box and say, during study hall, these students were able to get this. I know a lot of students use that to do their homework, but sometimes a day or maybe this particular week out of the month, this is what study hall is going to be about. And then making sure that each student has a study hall to train each student and making a concerted effort like that. So we're catching everyone while they're in school. I like that, Mr. Mayor.
And I think, my thinking here is we're talking about a safe space, but I think what expands that safe space out is the ability to deal with those things. Like, you don't need to have that singular space I've got to go to put my mind back in order. The more you're equipped and the more tools you're given, that space expands. You know, you can sit right here, be overwhelmed, and work your way through it. And so I think that's the thing, is where we may start with that area where they can go to breathe, but being able to give them the tools to expand that space out a little bit, I think is got to be key.
I know we've already touched bases a little while ago on middle schools, but I do want to prove out Ms. McFadden. I do want to say that that's an extremely incredible idea. I think that should be brought in. Really, but I want to say to the younger crowd, because as somebody who's a junior right now and is going to be rising up in their senior year, you say, hey, it's too late. I'm in the big world now. There's no one to help me, really. I mean, there's people out there to help you, but you already have so much implemented in your mind from people saying you can't, all this different stuff. So reaching out to that younger crowd, especially middle school, where everybody knows, I don't know if everybody remembers, but middle school, that thing was rocky. So, I feel like that's where we kind of need to look towards that direction. And I'm quite sure, I don't know, I was raised kind of very blunt and old school. So it was always figure it out. And I'm an only child, so everything was figure it out. So I want to say changing that is going to be difficult for not only staff and administration, because they didn't have that themselves, but it's going to be for students an entire impact. And I also want to add on that our study hall at Ridgeview High School, we are required to take an online class during that study hall, so you're not actually allowed to sit there. You have to take a virtual SC course. So that doesn't quite work for us. However, we do have advisory time, which is like when the panels and the news show would be broadcasted. But sometimes that is like for our class ring ceremony meetings for ordering your class rings. And I feel like that would be a great time to kind of squeeze that in there. And sometimes hearing it from the same gender or just whatever you feel, because even though you are older, not much has changed, let's be honest. I mean, a lot has changed, but it hasn't. So I don't think people realize that. They always say, y'all are just old farts. Like, that's not the case. I believe we still have a lot in common. So, I just want to say, okay, because this is how I always thought about it. This is how I was taught. So when you're in elementary school, you always look up to high schoolers and you say, wow, those are the big dogs. They know what they're doing in the world, right? You get to high school and you say, dang, look at those adults. They know what they're doing, right? They're the big dogs in the world. But actually you realize that everybody's just in the world and they're faking it till they make it. So once you get to that stage, you realize that. And I feel like kind of all of that can just tie into one. So just all those ideas, I'm just letting you know how we do it at our school, how it's been going on. I'm not really aware with other stuff in the district, which I do follow like student activities pages and stuff like that, try and keep myself updated. However, I can't speak for every school, but this is what we do. And I just want to say that that's an incredible idea, and stuff hasn't changed that much. So from student perspective, mentally and stuff like that, I'm quite sure your junior year, you came in and you said, well, I'm almost a senior, so ain't much to do now, right? Everybody still thinks like that. So it's those emotions and stuff, they still don't change. So I really want to say, don't just think about for the students. I want you to include yourself as well, because you were in those shoes at one point. Even though it's a different time period, you were in those shoes at that moment, and those feelings don't necessarily change. So just consider that.
I was going to say too, I think both of what you said, Tatiana and Ms. McFadden, those are great things. I think one of the things that was probably pretty amazing is that at freshman year at University of South Carolina, you were required to go through, and I think some schools still do it, a whole thing about what college is going to be like, the do's and don'ts, what you should and you should not do. And they even had this whole play thing. Don't go look for this video because it is out there, where you talk about drugs and drinking, and I had to play a drunk person. I had never drank in my life, but it was interesting because they covered all of those things. They talked about substance abuse. They talked about how it affected your mental health, and they talked about mental health, and they gave insights and tools on what you needed as a freshman. And I think that what you said is really important about catching that early, and especially the transition is usually the transition is middle school. It's like 13, you're developing, your full-on personality, and that's where things are solidified, as well as your emotions and, hormones, dare I say, all of those things start really shifting, and being able to go from a middle school environment to a high school environment can be shell-shocking, extremely shell-shocking. So maybe that's the conversation. That's kind of what we're talking about, is maybe doing something for middle school going into high school. Is that our thoughts? Okay, okay. And I think that's going to take us kind of finding out what all the schools do, and then figuring out what's the best method to have that, whether it's district-wide or whether it's, because I know that you all do things a little bit different at each school. Would that be fair to say? Okay. So that will be something that we will dig into and do some research around that. Okay, so we have a pretty good amount of things to work on, I would say. Are you all comfortable with the things that we've talked about tonight as being our plans for the 2023-2024 goals? Is there anything anybody would like to add?
I've got a question, Ms. Nash.
Sure.
You said Dr. Scott was going to talk about DARE.
Yes, can you talk about DARE, because you're the DARE guy?
Mr. Claxton's over here reminded me under his breath that you are the state coordinator for DARE. So,
thank you. Oh my God. I didn't want to, I'll be honest, I wasn't going to put you on blast.
I'm not sure what she was going to talk about tonight.
Okay.
DARE is a program that has been around since the late 80s. It has changed from the way it used to be back when it started. It did not take a curriculum change, and hopefully the teachers don't get too mad in the room. It didn't take a curriculum change for 20 years. So we can say that it probably got a little stale, a little outdated. Well, it has changed. They've updated it. It does do a little bit more. The elementary school program is still a 10-week program. When it first started, it was a 17-week program. They cover different things like communication, whether that's verbal and nonverbal communication, how to interact with people. They talk about the harmful effects and side effects of alcohol and tobacco, how to deal with conflict resolution. And that's basically the elementary. There's 10 weeks that cover that. You go into the middle school, it takes the same concepts, but it takes it just a little bit deeper. They also do realize that with high school level, they've redone that one, and that program, because they understand the time that it does take away from a classroom, that it's a 4-week program in high school. And that one gets them into a little bit more of a research-based, puts them into perspective of what it's going to be like, and makes them really think about what's going to be happening. We do have a elementary, middle, and high school program on mental health. There is a program on vaping. There's a program, I think everybody's got them. They got a program on gangs and all that stuff. Internet safety. But the mental health and the vaping are the two that came out in the last 3 years. And that one gets them a little bit more in depth, especially when you start getting into the high school. You start talking about the mental health and how things work. They have a pretty cool program. I think it's like lesson 3 or 4. They do what's called four pillars. And you are basically one of 4 different entities, whether you're in medical field, you're the law enforcement, you're the pharmaceutical company, and there's the judicial system, I think. And basically they got to defend it on why they think that state funding needs to go to one of those to help out handle a problem. So it actually gets them really involved. The problem with high school is getting time. And I'll be honest, in a high school classroom, it's very difficult. In middle school, it's very difficult because they are trying to get as much into the classroom as possible. Elementary, it's a whole lot easier. So we have a bigger population that does the DARE program through elementary. And this year, with great support, we've got it in a lot of our schools. I won't say all of them yet, and that's only because we're trying to get everybody certified so we can get everybody. They do go through a complete 80-hour course. The officers do, and there's 3 pages, and it kind of shows you where it's going to hit in curriculum. So that way it helps out the classroom teachers to say, okay, if I'm going to give up an hour of my time, what are you going to do to help me? How is that going to help me hit my standards? So we do base it off that. It is, it was nationally accredited a couple years ago. It's still nationally accredited. So I don't know exactly what Dr. Scott was going to talk about, but that's kind of the nutshell of where DARE is and how it's changed over the last 20 plus years.
I do have a question, and it was basically with high schools and middle schools, because it is difficult and they do have to have that classroom time, what are the times that are you using, or how are you navigating through some of that where you're successful?
In the high school level, I've got one person that's teaching it, and he is teaching it at a private school here in Richland County because it's just difficult to get in.
Okay.
A lot of it would go into maybe a government class. A lot of it's also geared towards your health classes. So if you can balance the two of them, the problem is up in high school level and in middle school, you don't necessarily have all the same kids in all the same classes. Whereas elementary, we can, hey, we're going to handle the science class and we're going to teach it in the science classes for this grade level. It's a little bit difficult, a little more difficult to maneuver in the high school and middle school.
Okay. Thank you.
Lieutenant, I do want to ask, how is this being broadcasted for middle and high schoolers? Because I remember in elementary school, everybody remembers that is the main program that everybody goes through. Did you get a DARE shirt? Did you see the lion? Did you do all that? Because I remember one time I was involved in a hit and run and I was younger and I was wearing my DARE shirt and the police pulled over and was like, oh, look at you. So I always remember that. But how is that being broadcasted for middle and high schools? Because actually, this is the first time I even heard about this for middle and high school levels. So how is that being brought out there?
Middle and high school is actually starting to take a little bit of traction. A couple years ago, we went through and we got all our middle school SROs certified at the time to try to get it into as many schools as possible. I think we're going to have better support from the school administration this go round. But it was really hard to get into the classrooms at the middle school level. Some of your other districts were able to get in, but really the middle school is very difficult to get into just because of time restraints. In high school, they only revamped that one about 3 years ago, so that one's still catching a little bit of traction. We're trying to push it as much as possible. I know they're doing it in a couple other counties throughout the state. But yeah, we're still trying to get into the high schools.
Okay, any questions or comments? Mr. Moody.
I got one more thing. If we could, I know we talked with the mental health part, with the building safety part, would it be possible to add, and I don't know if this is a subcommittee thing, and I don't know that we want to add too many subcommittees because everybody's got meetings already, but is there a way to add kind of a research and innovation type thinking? So if Mr. Claxton comes up and says, look, we've got the metal detectors, we're trying to lock down the entrances, the exits, we're doing this, we're doing that, and he can come up with, here's our next 3 things that we've got on the horizon, and you've got a subcommittee that can go in and find out what are other schools doing about this, what are other districts doing about this, researching products that are being developed that could be presented in a committee like this. So when he says, hey, I've got this problem, in our next meeting, the subcommittee comes back and says, here's 3 things that we could look at to address this, here's the cost, here's who's using it, different things like that. I think that would be helpful to be proactive, so when something comes up that they need to address and maybe address quickly, you've got a subcommittee that can meet, get on that, and start delegating some things out to research, find out what's, the hottest things out there to try to put in place as quickly as possible.
Claxton?
That sounds like a great idea. I'm not necessarily a big fan of subcommittees. I think it takes away, it kind of takes, we're at minimum manning right now, and then when you have a subcommittee, a lot of this stuff can be addressed, if it can be addressed at just this kind of a setting itself. But the problem that you have, and the superintendent mentioned it earlier, and I want everybody to be mindful of it, there are certain restrictions and limitations on what can be discussed publicly in regards to safety for obvious reasons. But I think in this type of a setting, and whatever the board, of course, requests information requested from the board, we can address those issues. There's nothing significant or substantive or beyond the pale that is in the immediate, in the immediate future, and as far as safety and security. We're always interested in adding additional layers to what we have in place. So anything else we'll add is just to layer on top of what we have existing. Nothing that will replace anything that's currently in place. And if there are any ideas, technologies, information, especially from students' input, we're always open to receive that and consider it.
Cameras in the schools and the hallways and especially entryways, entry doors, because a lot of times the doors may be shut, but people can come on the inside and open those doors, and maybe a badging system so that, their teachers aren't having to hold the door open for someone coming in. They can badge in a door, because sometimes we do know that it happens, that doors are getting propped open, and we want to try to, get a handle on that. So if we could, if something like that is happening and someone sees it, I think that Mr. Moody was saying, like, something we could do quick if we find out something that's going on, and maybe a call tree, because I'm not sure if all of us, we get the updates really quick, but a call tree for something that might be happening in our district to include, being able to get a hold of everyone quickly. I don't, subcommittees, either way, I'm not partial either way. However, but I'm not sure exactly how you want it to go, but either way, I support whatever. Either way, it's fine with me, but I think that I might need a clearer picture of exactly how you would like for it to be.
Well, and it's just kind of an idea floating out there, and I don't think it has to be anything pressing. And I think that's the whole point of it, is to work ahead and try to get ahead of whatever's coming up next. And whether, if it is it's an emergency, door lock, door jam, something like that has popped onto the market that they can see, and here's 3 new products that have been made available, and blah, blah, blah. It doesn't necessarily have to be in response to something, but trying to get out ahead of whatever may happen, or just kind of thinking ahead of time. So if something does arise, we have something there kind of on tap that we've talked about or discussed or any of that. So nothing, like I said, when I say subcommittee, I think of maybe 3 people that are tasked with researching something, or even if Mr. Claxton says, hey, I heard about this the other day, McGee, can you go take a look at this and see what you think, and make a couple phone calls or talk to this I know this school district got it, can you give them a call? It takes a little bit off his plate, and it just it gives so maybe subcommittee is a bad word, but maybe 3 or 4 people in the group that are at his disposal if he to research products or things like that. I don't know.
Is that helpful to you?
All these recommendations are very helpful to me.
Yes, good.
But I tell you one thing about the district, and it's positive, and that is that we really are on the forefront as far as what we're using technologically. When you consider what we have in place currently, our emergency notification system that's just been just been installed, which we can discuss because that's already been publicly discussed. The camera system that you mentioned, we had a huge camera upgrade throughout the district. That's completed. And I mean, so we're going in the right direction. We have a tremendous communications team that's putting out PSAs, a lot of information that's flowing, especially safety-related information. Now that Dr. Moore has this podcast or something that's going on. So, I mean, we're really heading in the right direction, and it's my position that we are on the forefront of the direction that a lot of school districts are going as far as safety and what they call security is concerned. And we should be very proud of that. But I'm always open for additional input, recommendations, suggestions, and of course, the board knows quite well that I'm always available when there needs to be some clarification given about what what we have in place right now. So that's always, I'm always around for that, but I appreciate it.
And can I just add to that, coming from the state where unfortunately we had Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, and the safety protocols that have been put in place are extensive. I can tell you from having toured the facility and working with our security department, we are right on track and doing a lot of things that are right for our students. We cannot discuss those things publicly, but know that when we have issues because of what we have in place, we are prepared. So we've been doing our drills. We have been making sure that those things that need to get done for all of our students are in place.
Thank you, but I will be remiss, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I do have a question regarding our classrooms that are outside the portables, the temporary classrooms. Some of our schools are going through construction and classes are using, well, I will just say my school, we have Blythewood Estates and these wonderful portables. Listen, we have coined that wonderful term, and honestly, our students and our teachers are okay with how we are navigating this space right now. But I will tell you, there are no bathrooms in that facility. And so when we think about logistics for moving students and staff into the main building from outside, safety is a concern, and that's one of the things our SIC, we're talking to our administration about. And I'd like to know, do we have anything in place, like we talk about cameras on the inside of our main buildings, but there are no cameras outside or in the portables? Are we working on that? And where will they be? In addition to that, if the students need to enter into a main building, will there be radios? How are we having these students coming in and out to use the restrooms? There's just logistics and little checks, and, you know, we need to smooth out.
Well, let me say what I can say. And that is, thankfully, we have an SRO assigned to all of our schools in the district. And their responsibility is for the entire footprint campus of our schools. That includes, if we have, they don't call them portables anymore, there's another word for them. Cottages. Cottages.
Blythewood Estates.
Blythewood Estates, for example. You know, we do have law enforcement coverage, thankfully. And the safety team does continue to do the safety rounds throughout all of the campuses on a daily basis, 24 hours a day, actually. 7 days a week, we have safety patrols throughout. We do have camera coverage inside and outside of our buildings, and we are always expanding and increasing that coverage, you know, according to our needs. So those are ongoing things that are in place to ensure that we have a certain level of protection on the campus for everyone on the campus, either inside the building or in cottages or the estates, et cetera. And as far as communication, we are always improving and increasing our communication throughout the district. We have major enhancements to our two-way communication systems. So, you know, we have those things in place in each and every building in the district. Does that answer your question?
Do we have funding, or will additional radios be sent to schools that need those?
You said the
portable
magic word
radios?
funding, I'm out. I'm outside.
Well, we have a line item budget for it, so I'm wondering, are the radios in? Will the schools who requested those radios for administrators and teachers receive them?
There are some, we are distributing some additional radios according to needs throughout the district itself. So we're in process. Everything is, you know, is in process when you're talking about procuring items and materials, especially nowadays. Seems like everything is on back order or whatever, but we are addressing a lot of the needs and really the needs. That's what we're addressing, not necessarily the wants, but the needs, because we want to make sure that we have a clear communication line in every corner of the district itself. So the short answer is yes. We are addressing and dealing with that issue specifically with two-way communication.
May I make a recommendation that we have during our meetings, since the items that are in process, maybe for Mr. Claxton to come and give us an update on those said items?
Save for the things he can't
Yeah.
discuss.
Yes.
Well, just keep in mind, when you're talking about budget items, that's outside of the safety.
No, I mean the things that are in process, that have been paid for or on the way, whatever that might be, whatever we're working on. If that is an item that's been completed, that is a safety item, maybe bring that back and report it.
I think you did that for us the last time as well, so that would be great, yeah, if you would do what you guys did before.
I do want to go back to what Dr. Moore was speaking about at MSD High School. So exactly 1 year from today, I was there at the high school for a student council conference. And I also stayed a day during the school day to actually experience the difference and after the tragic events. And actually, I want to say being here and seeing the difference in the action that our district has taken, a lot of people may think it's not the best, but honestly, when you go and you look around, Richland 2 is doing extremely incredible. So props to our safety and security team. I also want to say, Ridgeview High School, y'all all know the beautiful Hardscrabble Road. Lord knows how long they've been working on that. Too long. So what I do want to say is a problem that we did have facing my freshman year is we did have our wonderful Miss Addie who was outside and she was directing traffic, especially because of the construction. And now they're moving on through the summit. And that's like our main way to get through. And a lot of people live in the summit. So the problem that we had is all of our security was moving indoors. So we no longer had somebody that was outside to direct traffic. So now we got people rolling in a ditch, teenagers in Nissan Altimas who are zooming and, who are sitting in the front of the school waiting for roadside assistance. So I want to say all of our security members have moved inside, which has kind of been a little bit of a problem. But I do want to say our ISS classroom, we have cameras actually. It's a screen, it's always pulled up. And it has cameras of the outside doors. And we do have security members who are sitting. They have chairs at every single door and they sit there. So I don't know if that's at other schools. I hope that is so. But I know that's at our school. So when you talk about having cameras by the doors, I know Ridgeview has that. So what I also want to say is, okay. Sorry, it's a lot. So what I want to say with security-wise, y'all are doing an incredible job, so keep that up. Richland 2 has been very innovative and great at keeping up technology-wise. And I know that sometimes it doesn't always have to be a expensive thing, because I know us as students for early college to get off campus, because sometimes we don't have classes, we just simply have a sticker on the back of our ID, hey, let us go, please. So sometimes instead of, I don't want to say wasting, but spending the most money, maybe we can look at alternative resources. So a sticker, I mean, who likes a sticker that wears off? But I'm just saying sometimes those things can be thought about as well instead of just going straight to spending money and doing like those badge things, because having people stand there and having people get paid for that, having cameras already there, what's the purpose of spending a whole bunch of money on something? I know for me, when I walk out the school doors, so we have it so that in the morning, the metal detectors are set up by the auditorium. Afterwards, if you're late to school, it gets moved all in the front office, so you have to walk all the way at the front office. No one's gonna let you in anywhere else. And that's just point blank period. Like nobody's gonna let you in anywhere else. So what happens is sometimes there's been experiences where I've been walking out of the school building because I don't have class, and there'll be people who are sitting there waiting. And sometimes you can't just close the door on a person, so sometimes they'll just happen to come in. And that's something where sometimes more security needs to be at the door. So like if security is at the door, then that wouldn't be a problem. But I always try as a student to open the opposite door from the way that they are standing. So it doesn't seem like I'm intentionally letting them in. So I just want to say props to y'all. Rich, you have some of that stuff already going. And also I want to say that sometimes looking at the less expensive stuff is okay too.
And I know the traffic has been, we've had many conversations about the traffic because it's resulted from a law that was by the State Department a long time ago, and then the Attorney General gave an opinion on it as well, that they, were going to go along with what the State Department said as well of education. So something that we're working on, I know we have our legislative committee that is going to be doing some work to talk to our legislators to work that out. But yeah, that's something that unfortunately, that part of it of being able to they have a class 3 officer has to be somebody that's out there. And so we can't just let, because for their safety, because there were volunteers, there were other people. And so we're working on that, but it is going to take a little bit of time because it is a legislative issue, but we will be working on it. Okay, well, it's 7:20, and I like to be a person of my word, and if I say 7:30, 7:30. So does anybody have any questions or comments about that you would like to add tonight before we close out?
Well, I would just like to take a second. I know December is the month of recognition for special education, but I just want to take a second just to tell all of our teachers and the support staff, our SPED teachers, our physical therapists, occupational speech therapists, the adaptive technology specialists, everyone who works with our unique students, a special thanks and gratitude from all of the parents in our community. So I really appreciate them.
And Dr. Moore, did you have any comments or anything you want to add? I want to make sure that I include you in this.
Well, since we brought up about our special ed, I'll just share this good news. You'll hear it again tomorrow night. But we just finished our Medicaid audit, and we got a great review from that. And it's because of the hard work of our staff and our teachers that are doing that every single day for each of our students, but in particular for our special needs students. So we want to make sure we always celebrate that. But other than that, thank you very much, everybody, for coming out. And thank you to our students. Your voice is important, and we appreciate you being here.
Okay, well, if no one has anything else, I just want to say thank you to you all. It's all good. It's great to see you all again. And for all you newcomers, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. And we will see you guys the first Thursday of December. All right, and we'll send you out a reminder. All right, thank you guys so much. And this meeting is now adjourned.